Josh here, and I'm doing a thing.
Things are shaping up to be pretty odd.
So, on January 16th, Ralph Seppi Jr., also known as Ralphthemoviemaker, uploaded a video, an hour long, about the best and worst movies of 2016, and I watched it almost as soon as it came out. And it was really good, but what I realized is that I haven't seen a lot of movies from 2016, and so, like I said earlier, I'm doing a thing. So in the description of that video, there are 48 movies that he talks about in length, well, some of them in length, in that video. And so, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be reviewing those movies. How, you may ask? Well, I'm going to watch a few of the movies every week and then review them and talk about them at the end of the week. Hopefully I'll be able to do 6, but sometimes I might not be able to. Whatever. I'm doing this because there's a lot of movies that I wanted to talk about, but I've never really got the chance to, and this will give me that opportunity. Also, I feel like I kind of need something to make myself make videos. So starting, without further ado, my review on the documentary, Tickled. Oh boy. Hey. So, Tickled is the weirdest movie that I've watched in this series so far, which isn't saying a whole lot because it's the only movie I've watched, but it's weird, okay? I promise. Watched the trailer before watching the movie, and it said to go into the movie cold, so I did, and it was really surprising. So basically what happens is David Farrier, he's the guy doing the documentary, he writes about weird and wacky and bizarre things for this like news article or news like program. I don't know. He writes this lighthearted article about competitive tickling competitions and this tickling video that he just happens to find, right? So he thinks nothing of it, he just thinks it's a funny little video, and then he gets a email from the site that made the video with legal threats and just like normal threats too. Yeah, and it goes on from there. So it sounds like a pretty light-hearted premise, right? But it turns into like this crime documentary, and it's not as lighthearted as you would think. I really enjoyed it. I like the suspense of figuring out who the person behind the company is, and they say their name is Jane O'Brien, but you find out at the end that it's not. It's not really a spoiler because you kind of understand how life works. And I love the filming. Like, I loved when they would film and it'd be on like a secret cam or like a handheld, but they'd still make it look good or like try to get the right shot, and I admired that because it's hard to do, you know, when you're in a documentary and in a public situation. I think a big part of the success of this documentary was making you forget that Jane threatens people with videos of them being tickled, and it turns her into like an actual villain that you should be scared of because she is scary, and you really wanted her to be taken down. Okay, on to the bad stuff. To be honest, there's not a lot of it because I really did enjoy this movie, but there's a few things that bothered me. One is that it felt at times, not a lot of the time, but at sometimes, that they were trying to do the most they could to get a good documentary in, but without getting into legal trouble with the production company. Like, I understand why they're doing this, but it would have been nice for them to enter the building that the other production company was filming at. You know the scene if you watch the movie. I'll show a little clip of it. But
Yes, Sam.
We've been spotted.
But it would have been nice to see them do that and some other things that they didn't do for it seemed like legal reasons. Number 2, big spoiler here. Was at the end of the movie, they find out who Jane O'Brien was and Terry Tickles or something like that, and it's this old guy named David D'Amato. You know, it was really satisfying having them find him, but nothing ever really happened. Like, once they found him and they confronted him, he just kind of drove away, and justice wasn't served. You know, it felt unfinished. Like, I wish there was another half-an-hour episode of this just to like kind of conclude like, hey, he's going to jail because he did a lot of bad things, because really he hasn't even paid for any of his crimes yet, except for like the 2 that he went to like 6 months of jail for. But there's really a lot of other things that he should be sentenced by, and that kind of made me sad. Also, really weird note, I just wanted to add this, the guy David D'Amato showed up at the original screening for this movie and like talked to the guys that filmed it. It's just so weird and creepy, and that's the main thing that made this scary, was that it's in the real world, like this has actually happened. In conclusion, it's a really scary, no, it's not scary, it's a really uncomfortable and creepy movie, but it told a really great story. And Ralph said that it was scary, and I don't think it was. I think it was only scary because, like I said, David D'Amato still exists out there, and there are still people like him in the real world, and that's where this happened. It's not a fictional, like, horror, like, this happened in the real world. That's the scariest thing of all. I give Tickled a 6 out of 10, and you can watch the ending, because I put a time code in the description for it. You're welcome. To see why I rated it that, and what I rated the other ones, and how they compare. Okay? Alright. Movie number 2. Space Cop. Okay. This is maybe the worst movie I've seen all year. Not in the series, all year. Like, it's bad. I'm not a fan of, ooh, nice forehead. Yeah, that's better. I'm not a fan of RedLetterMedia. I've seen a few of their videos, and they're alright. Not being a fan going into this movie is depressing. I bet if you were a fan, there would be enjoyable parts, like you'd understand who some of the actors were, but I didn't, so it was terrible. The second scene with Patton Oswalt is just horrendous. Like, it's terrible. It might be the least funny scene in the history of all movies ever. Yeah, and there was one joke in that entire sequence which was terrible that I didn't hate, and then they ruined it with Patton Oswalt's reaction. Also, side note, how did they get Patton Oswalt? Like, I mean, he's not like a great actor, but he's an actor, unlike all these other incoherent pieces of dumb.
Bitch, you thirsty, please grab Sprite. My crib's lurking, don't die tonight.
I mean, it's like they don't want to be there. Like, even Space Cop, oh my god, who played Space Cop? I think it's like the main guy from RedLetterMedia, but he was terrible. Like, his voice was so annoying. He talked like an imbecile. Ugh. And the costumes are just terrible. The aliens are just dudes in masks, places with like holes for their mouth to go. It looks terrible. Even the Space Cop costume is really bad. It's just like a star on his chest that they like sewed in. It's terrible. So a big problem with the movie is that it's really stupid and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. Like, why do all the cops have to change their name to Space Cop? Like, wouldn't that get confusing? Like, at the start, it made no sense why the commander was calling Space Cop, since every single Space Cop would be called Space Cop. So I was like, okay, what's going on? And then they explain it later on, and it still doesn't make any sense. Like, the only reason for having that would for it to be like a funny joke, but it's not funny. So there's no point. Like I said, there are a lot of jokes that pertain to the lowest common denominator and really aren't funny and just make the movie longer and boring. Like, it's so boring. Especially when they pause for laughter, like in The Office, they pause for laughter a lot because it's like cringe humor.
Stanley, you crush your wife during sex and your heart sucks. Boom, roasted. Oscar, you are... Oscar, you're gay.
Wow. But at least in The Office, it's funny. Here, they just pause for laughter, and you're sitting there watching a bunch of dumb YouTubers standing on a screen with no costumes. And oh my god, the action. The action is like the main gag. The main joke in the entire, like the running joke in the movie is that whenever Space Cop goes anywhere or tries to help out on a crime scene, he ends up killing everyone involved because he is so inane and oblivious. So for that to happen, there needs to be action. And it is horrible. When he shoots people with his laser gun, which has a scope, like it's got like a scope, like right there, that you can look through, but he uses it like a handgun. Like, I'm just throwing that in there, okay? So he shoots people with his laser gun, pew, and that doesn't look too bad, but they have to stay like stationary when he does that. So the problem is when he gets into a firefight with the aliens that really just look like humans because they couldn't have the costume on, and in the cryogenics lab. So they're both just standing still on either side, and they're shooting each other like pew, and then staying, and then pew, and it's so amateur. Also, cryogenics don't work that way. People don't die, get frozen, and then just come back to life whenever they want to. It's not how it works. Problem with not knowing how cryogenics works is that the secondary character, the detective, he comes back from the cryogenics. So the entire movie is basically based on a false plot point. That could have been plausible. Like, they could have done it correctly, but they just chose not to. Oh yeah, another thing, speaking about realism, is nothing's realistic, even on Earth. Like, I guess that's a joke, but it's so unfunny. It really takes away from the movie. After all of these points that are just taking away from the movie, there's really nothing good left. Space Cop just murders innocent people on Earth, like a lot, and the Space Chief is just like, oh, profanity. The script's just so silly, you end up not caring about anybody. Now on to a few things that I kind of liked about this movie. There are a few scenes that maybe go, huh, that's it. Yeah. The solitaire scene, that had potential. Like, it could be a really, really bad scene in an alright movie, but it wasn't. Oh yeah, also the scene with the boiling water, that was kind of funny. I was like, when he walked in and killed the lady right away, my god, I can't believe I just said that. This is such a bad movie. Yeah, when he killed the lady right away, that was kind of funny. Oh my god, that's just a doll. That is literally just a doll. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not even discreet. It's just a doll. It's just a doll. The only reason for the shot of the boiling water is so that the baby can fall in it, die, and then squirm alive in the boiling water as it's being melted with their stupid animatronics. Like it seems like something out of a horrifying thriller, but instead it's a lazy YouTube comedy. Yay! So one of my last points. All the jokes are really unfunny and not topical at all. Why is all of the sound effects slapstick? Like, just listen to it. Just listen to it.
Oh my god, the garbage cans! Ow!
To it. In my review and sum this entire terrible movie up is this horrible scene that is just made up of innuendos. And it's so stupid, it sums up the movie perfectly. You just have to watch to understand.
I can't believe he took all of it, especially considering how heavy it was.
Not to mention big. That one was almost 12 inches long, but he put it all the way in. He took it like a champ.
We were waiting so long, too. I didn't think he was ever gonna come.
I was getting so tired of being in the closet, but then when he finally came, I could come out of the closet. It was so hot.
I thought I was gonna have to shave forever.
Just a terrible movie. 2 out of 10.
My crib's lurking, don't die tonight. I just wanna dance with you, baby. Just don't.
This movie is totally sick, dude. All the acting is actually really good, and I cared about the characters, which I didn't think I was going to do. Basically, I thought it was going to be a really stupid action movie, and it was, but it had other aspects to it which made it a good movie. I mean, the dialogue was a little cheesy at times, but no one came and flipped on this movie to look at actors talking. They came for the mother-joshing action, and it delivers.
Star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing car passing by like Lady Godiva. I'm gonna go, there's no stopping me.
Oh boy, it delivers. Okay, so the opening sequence, with the credits and all the gore, that kind of turned me off a little bit, because I thought, again, it was going to be a stupid action movie, and it was going to rely on the gore as a crutch and not have good action. But it doesn't. It actually uses the gore really well, and it feels like a shiny effect that kind of polishes the movie a little bit. So let's talk about the camera style. It is experimental, and obviously that's the draw to this movie, is that it's shot like an FPS video game. And it pays homage to I don't know how to say that word, to a lot of the classic video game, with tropes like the silent protagonist and the gun reload system. I think the reason it works so well is because of how captivating the action and story are. If it was shot differently, I think it would have looked like a cheap, R-rated Winter Soldier movie, like from Captain America, you know. and it doesn't. But because of the way it's shot, it puts you in the shoes of Henry and really makes you care about everything going around. And I think that was a really big, good job, hardcore, Henry. Okay, let's talk visual effects. I know you can tell that it's not the highest budget movie. Like when they're in the escape pod and going through the clouds, you can tell it's a green screen. Like whenever anybody is in the air, I always compare it to that scene from Iron Man 3 where he's saving the people in the air. That looks real. So to compare to that, it doesn't. So the blood looks real also, which is good because there's a lot of it in the movie. But a lot of the other things don't look real. Like the technology looks like it was just made out of a lot of duct tape. The fight scenes are a little disorienting, but for the most part they're pretty good and you can tell who's shooting who. And now I want to talk about the soundtrack because it was really great. Like every piece they put on fits with the grotesque action going on in the center of the screen. I think that the electronic dubstep style doesn't really work for most movies, but in this it works really well, keeping it upbeat and lighthearted because even though there's so much action going on, like it really is a lighthearted movie. Like there's a musical number in it. More films need to be as experimental as this one. A lot of other action movies nowadays all follow the same path and generic storyline. And a lot of them are good, like Mission Impossible, but they're all the same. This one, it feels like the creators of it just wanted to do all the things that they wanted to put and see in an action movie, they just put into this one because they could. And it works really well. I think the movie wanted to be funny, and for the most part it was, but there were some jokes that was just like, huh? And like a lot of it, other than the musical number, was funny. And even the musical number explained how Jimmy and his different bodies worked, which I thought, you know, it was a creative way of explaining how that character worked and moved. And speaking of Jimmy, I really genuinely cared for that character. And I think you really needed a character to care for in this movie because you didn't have anyone else to really root for since you're in the shoes of Henry, so you really needed that character to be along with you the whole movie. A lot like in video games, you have that one character that kind of guides you. So we got some spoilers coming up. I'm going to be talking about the ending of the movie. Just go watch it on Netflix. Like it's right there, so then you can come back and watch this review of the last scene. You won't regret it. Okay, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Alright, the ending is in one word, epic. In 2013, epic was a little overused as a word and everyone got tired of it, but that's the only way to describe this last scene. So Jimmy's whole backstory actually felt really natural, and when he died, his death was both surprising and sad. I think that was a big factor for this movie, and the ending is that when Henry goes in and kills about 100 people, he has a reason, and he has a reason to be angry and hardcore. The villain was kind of stupid in the way he looked, acted, and spoke. And I think that was a low point for the movie. You know, the villain is supposed to be the cool, enjoy seeing be chaotic. Like in video games, the villain's always the coolest character. And in this, that just wasn't the case. But his powers looked pretty sick, so like I said earlier, the soundtrack was really great for this movie. And in the final scene, when they play the Queen song, it really just like adds some gravitas to the situation. I don't know if I said that word properly, but we're just going to go with it. It worked really well. Also, it was choreographed really well, the final fight scene. Everything looked really good, and when he punched people, they actually like moved backwards. It looked really crisp. So the twist where it's his wife isn't actually his wife, kind of saw that coming. Not to be like, oh, I'm smart and watch movies a lot. Yeah, but I kind of saw that coming, but it still worked well, I think, and I wasn't positive if that was going to happen. So that really added to you wanting him to kill the villain so badly. For his sake, for Henry's sake, and for Jimmy's sake, you just really wanted the villain to die brutally. And he did. It was brutal. It was really, really bad special effects for his death, and it looked kind of fake, but it was still awesome, okay? It was still awesome.
I never ran from nothing but the police.
You know, it was really satisfying. If there was another movie, it would have to fill in a lot of the blanks because a lot of stuff wasn't really explained. But like I said, no one really cares. They're there for the action. I personally love this movie, and I think it was one of the most enthralling movies I've seen in a while. And surprisingly enough, the characters were really well written. And even though it wasn't very dramatic, it was overwhelmingly awesome in the best way. Basically, I thought it was going to be a really dumb action movie with bad effects, and I was really wrong. And one of the best parts about it is that if any other film had one scene from this movie, then that film would be amazing, and that scene would probably be the best scene in the whole movie. That's what's great about this Hardcore Henry movie, is that all the scenes are the best scenes in the movie. Solid 6 out of 10. So to tie up all the movies in this review is this visual that I created for your viewing. It's in the order of best to worst. Obviously, Space Cop was the worst because it was horrible. But I had to put Hardcore Henry over Tickled simply because Tickled wasn't as scary or creepy as I had hyped it up to be in my own head. And Henry was just more entertaining overall. I'm leaving Tickled and Hardcore Henry each with a 6, just to leave room for other movies. If I think they are better or worse, then I'll bump them up or down. But hopefully, I'll see you in about 2 weeks. Alright, this video took a long time to make, and if you liked it, then leave a like. If you didn't, leave a mean comment. And either way, subscribe, because if you made it this far, that means you'll probably be back next week, and you'll want to see my next review. Alright, see you later, Home Slices.